Welcome back to another video, everyone. I feel like it's been a while since I've recorded a video for the channel, even though it hasn't been that long. But today we have a really important video because you guys have been asking for this video for a long time, something around this topic, which is what do you do when you feel like there's nothing to photograph? When you've hit a creative roadblock, you're unmotivated, whatever it is that might be affecting you. And how do we deal with this as photographers, as creatives? And so I thought of making a video, but instead of, what I usually do, I kind of go through things and I talk about possible scenarios, use examples of, famous photographers, etc. Today I decided to create my own scenarios. I decided to do something more practical with different gears so that you can see that sometimes it's very easy to do these things and keep creative or keep busy in your mind, which I think it's a key in today's video because I feel like there's never a situation where you have nothing to photograph. I feel like there's always something, and sometimes it's us and our way of seeing things. Sometimes we're being affected by things around us, by, in our personal lives, or something that because we're not inspired at the moment, or we're not just feeling it, or we're simply very, discontent with what our work is, photographically speaking. And so this can lead to, of course, you wanting to stop, you wanting to have a break, you don't know really what to do. And I feel like at this point in time, it's good to do a very simple exercise where you ask yourself, what do you think a good photograph looks like? What are the aspects that you appreciate in a good photograph? For me, formally speaking, I would say personally, there's loads of things, light and shadow, multiples, reflections, textures, motion and blur, so many other things. And I feel that, creating situations where I can explore these keeps my mind busy and hopefully keeps me engaged in and doing something creative. And so first and foremost, let me quote to you the wise words of a wise man, Ansel Adams, and he famously said, "You don't take a photograph, you make it." And with this in mind, I looked around for objects and things that could spark visual interest to create scenarios I could photograph using both my film cameras, my instant camera, and also my iPhone's camera, because I wanted to show you that you don't need the best gear to create interesting compositions. You do it with any camera and any resources you have available. And so the list of gear for this video goes like this: 2 simple tripods, cameras, some film, a light meter, and 2 small lights. These were GU's Mulus G60 and X100, which I'll be talking to you in more detail later in the video. And with this, we have now 2 lessons. The first one is going back to basics by asking ourselves what makes a good composition or a good photo, and second, to never stop photographing. So first, we're going to create some still lifes, and playing with different elements like colors and shapes, I created this simple setting in my office space where I used one of my black shirts and with the key light played around with the different textures and colors of different flowers, rearranging the different elements and introducing new objects like a bottle of perfume, just trying to be creative really, but you can do this with anything that you want. And then of course, by manipulation and by doing some lowering lights and shadows and contrasts, etc. I created these final images, and these are really interesting to me. I really love how the colors pop out. But then I went on and I made a little light play and took some photos of my Nighthawk Sprint I have hanging in my office space. And another important step when you feel blocked or uninspired is to look at other people's work and look for inspiration. In this case, I had with me specific examples that were very inspirational to me. Photos that I had seen a long time ago, and I kept it in a folder just for inspiration for moments like this. And some of those photos were of photographer Andre Cortez, Paulette Tormina, some from fashion photographer John Rawlings, and a couple by Berenice Abbott. And with that, I created another situation in the bathroom, playing with water, the textures of a newspaper, and different colors of flowers. And in both these situations, my key lights were crucial because I was able to focus and direct them to a specific point I was trying to highlight, creating some very interesting shadows and contrasts within the images themselves. And these actually turned out to be some of my favorite images because I really like that idea of, that type of artwork of collages that you see in Dadaism and etc. And I really have always been a fan of that. And so so for me it was interesting to create or recreate this through photography and see all the colors playing with the different textures. And then I moved on and created some more interesting scenarios that I'd like to discuss with you as well. So by doing that earlier exercise where I wrote specific things I was looking for in photos, like textures, contrasts, shapes, this served me as almost like a guide into finding more elements to fill my compositions, which combined with inspiration from André Cortés led to objects like glasses and combining different shapes of glasses and highlighting these very different shapes and forms, whether that was in color or in black and white, and see how the color and the lack of color affects image shaping, composition, and image creation. And this of course changed every time that I, changed my lights, whether there was direction or simply intensity. And this was a great exercise for me as well to, remind myself of the importance of light and the importance of looking for those little details in light and how light affects things. So I feel like, it's interesting to talk about these concepts. I talk about these concepts all the time in my videos, how light affects things and etc. And we look through a book or something else from another photographer, but it's interesting to create these examples ourselves and see for ourselves with our own eyes and be able to have this control over the situation that you normally wouldn't have. And hopefully it'll remind me or reteach me, if you will, when I go out in the streets and I look for situations, to look at light more closely and pay more attention to these details. Another aspect that I think it's great to think about when we're uninspired is to think of photographing familiar settings. Sometimes it's hard to find strength or motivation to go for a walk, so if you don't feel like it, then try and give yourself a challenge to be creative and photograph in familiar surroundings. And with this in mind, I went to the family house here in Ireland and I tried to photograph its little quirks, paintings, photographs and flowers in the backyard. And with this, you're basically telling your brain to do this exercise of almost re-seeing what you see every day, or is very familiar to you and you've seen so many times before. So in a way, trying to find value in the everyday life or in the situations or settings that you know so well. And here I use my lights to simulate night, as I wanted to rely solely on these lights as my only light sources, so I could keep on trying to understand their effect and, especially artificial light and how to deal with those situations. And I photographed some elements in the kitchen, the fridge doors, snacks. Then I grabbed this newspaper that was around the house and found an interesting page and improvised scenes on the kitchen table. And overall, I feel like these are very simple photos, but it keeps your mind busy and it opens the doors to create more situations and experiment instead of focusing on the feeling of frustration. Focus on the solution to overcome it. And lastly, the conversation turns to portraits that you can easily be creative around. And I usually like to think of the human body as a canvas. And here I wanted to highlight that even if you don't have someone available or willing to be photographed by you, you can simply use yourself and work around your own body, face, hands, etc. And self-portraits is something I really enjoy doing, and I've done an entire video dedicated to this in the past, which you're welcome to check it out. But this time around, I had the challenge for myself, and that was to photograph as well different details of the body, such as hands. And here enters some of my inspirations that I quoted to you earlier, John Rawlings and Berenice Abbott. And I decided to as well introduce flowers. I know we've talked about flowers a lot in this video, or we've seen a lot of flowers so far, but I think flowers really was kind of an added element, and I wanted to explore that and, compositions around the human body and those details. And I think some of these images, really were very interesting, and I'm going to be adding them to my collection of self-portraits or body details. I think it was very, very interesting. But now that we have reached this point in the video, that we've talked about so many things, I feel like I've, at least tried to be as helpful as I can. It's time to talk about, or make a brief note about, the lights that I was using for this specific video. And these were Ji-Eun's Moelis G60 and Moelis X100. And I found these to be incredibly portable, professional and lightweight lights. which in my experience meant that I could carry them more easily around the different sets I was photographing in, and they both come with their own bags, which I could comfortably store in my backpack when traveling. And in these bags, I could also store some important accessories like their power cables, chargers, mini soft boxes, and balance mount adapters. Personally, I like that I could switch between their mini soft box, which I used for more localized light situations, and then switch to a balance mount for situations where it was required to have a wider range and diffusion. And I found these to be quite easy to attach and detach in both lights. And when talking about range, I definitely was extremely impressed with both these lights, since both of them have a color temperature ranging between 2700 to 6500 Kelvin. And with the G60, we're talking about a 60 watts light, and with the X100, we're talking about, of course, a 100 watts light, which is the smallest and at the same time the most capable light I have worked with to film things here in the office. So it's safe for me to say that these are pretty versatile, and I've used these for both video and photography, but I would also say that they're great for live streaming and other creative applications if you need them to. Lastly, I have to say that I've noticed both of these lights have a great build quality, and I particularly like their cooling systems as they were quite efficient. There was never ever a situation where they were too hot for me to handle, and I filmed around all these situations in details for 2 full days and then a third day to film just this in the office. Both of these can also be easily controlled through the app. And last but not the least, you have 2 ways of charging the Molus G60 via a DC adapter and a Type-C fast charging, whereas the Molus X100, you have the extra option of powering it via its grip battery. Which, to be honest with you, it is really handy because it's very hard, and if you do something like with filming, photography, to carry all the equipment when you have to film somewhere else. So it's very handy to have something as portable as these, and you probably see in the footage that I used, some, cables and etc., but that was only because I was filming for a really long period of time. Anyways, I'd like to thank GU for kindly sponsoring today's video, for allowing me to, use these lights and just trial out as well, and trial them out and, hopefully share my, my thoughts and my opinion on them. I really appreciate it. And if you want to know more about these lights and other, things that they do, you can check out their website, which will be down below. And thank you to them, but also thank you to you for kindly watching the videos, for supporting the channel, for the messages, and leave your feedback down below. Also things that might complement this video, might help other people that are watching and reading the comments below as well. And I'd like to do another video where I do more exercises on photography, more photography exercises for us to try out, for us to have in mind. So if you have any ideas for that one, you can leave them down below as well. I really appreciate it. And links to my social media, to the members community, will be down below. You're welcome to check them out. And yeah, I guess that it's all for today. So stay safe, keep shooting, keep creating, and I'm out. Peace.
Seen it all, you can't all benefit too. Femme fatale, I can't fall in love with you. Seen it all, you can't